Welcome to the Everyday Warrior podcast, where we talk free to break free. As someone who's been told they talk too much, can speak with a mouthful of marbles, and might just be able to sell ice to Eskimos, I have found the perfect space to speak my truth and dive into deep conversations. This podcast is about celebrating everyday warriors, the people who face life's challenges head on, breaking through obstacles to build resilience, strength, and courage. Join me, your host, Trudy Marie, as I sit down with inspiring individuals who have fought their own battles and emerged stronger, sharing raw, real, and authentic stories that make you laugh, cry, debate, wonder, intrigue, feel all the emotions, and get curious about life with. This is a safe space to explore, question, and find your own path to new possibilities. Let us all embrace the warrior within and realize that while no one is walking in your shoes, others are on the same path, journeying through life together. Please note that the following podcast may contain discussions or topics that could be triggering or distressing for some listeners. I aim to provide informative and supportive content, but understand that certain themes may evoke strong emotions or memories. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or in need of support while listening, I encourage you to pause the podcast and take a break. Remember that it is okay to prioritize your well-being and seek assistance from trained professionals. There is no shame in this. In fact, it is the first brave step to healing. If you require immediate support, please consider reaching out to Lifeline on 13 11 14 or a crisis intervention service in your area. Thank you for listening, and please take care of yourself as you engage with the content of this podcast. Love the Everyday Warriors podcast? You can support the show for as little as $5 with a one-time donation or by becoming a monthly subscriber. Your contribution helps me continue bringing you inspiring stories of everyday warriors who overcome challenges to find strength, resilience, and new possibilities in life. Head to the link to buy me a coffee and fuel the next episode. Every bit counts. If you're looking for an inspiring story of resilience, healing, and rediscovering yourself, my book, Everyday Warrior, is for you. It's my memoir of hiking the 1,000-kilometre Birtles track, a journey that was as much about finding my way back to myself as it was about conquering the trail. Through the highs, lows, and everything in between, this book shares my raw and honest experience of overcoming trauma and embracing the strength within. Grab your copy now. Just head to the link in the show notes and let's take this journey together. Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Warriors podcast. And today I have Hayley from Brisbane with me. And Hayley and I came about through actually Facebook and just the power of networking where, you know, you get tagged in a post and then that post leads to messages and then that post leads to here today. So welcome, Hayley.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very grateful.
You're welcome. So I want to start your story by going back, I believe it's about 12 or 18 months ago when some things in your life happened. But what was your life like leading up to that point so we can give the listeners a sense of what life was like before that?
Oh, everything was great. I was on top of the world. I was kicking goals. We were doing a whole host of really beautiful things. Look, 12 to 18, it feels like yesterday. Not gonna lie, but 12 to 18 months ago, there was a lot of things going on. We were still recovering from the backlash of floods. There was some stuff going on legally where I actually got myself into an unfortunate position when I was helping philanthropically with what they call it, a scheme. It's not the worst word in the world is scheme because it makes it sound like scheming. It was never, but that's the reference to it in a court setting where one person came. I'll tell you this part so I'm not bouncing all over the place. So the whole thing that kind of started this slow motion crash, as I describe it, was when the floods happened and it took out Lismore. Do you remember the floods in Lismore?
I do.
Like, it was catastrophic. Never seen anything like it. My own house got flooded multiple times, and somebody that I knew sent out the back signal and said, hey, we need all hands on deck. So not only did we physically take my children down to Lismore, we were like, I had my friends calling the local councillor, hey, Hayley, can you bring as many people as possible and help sandbag and you be a good citizen, right? You do what you can within your capacity to be able to help. So I received another phone call from somebody that said, hey, would you come down to Lismore and help, but also so you can see what's going on? Because I'm in branding, communications, graphic design, web design, all those types of things, where I'm able to kind of capture scenarios and be able to wrap things around it. So I knew, obviously, going down to Lismore, that I'm not going to be able to help myself but report on what was actually happening. There's lots of different things flying around. There's a lot of political rubbish flying around. But aside from all of that, when we landed in Lismore, it was absolute carnage and devastation. I've never seen anything like it. There was full containers stuck in the sides of houses. The water was up to our window as we were driving through. I was actually worried that my children that were in the car at the time, I was like, what are we doing? I'm risking my own life to help these people that I've never met and don't know. But that's what you do as a good human being. And I actually wanted to do that with my children, to show them what you do. You roll your sleeves up, you get stuck in, and you help. So all of that happened. Anyway, come back to the office. Not to mention my own house completely flooded, raining from the top, the sides, everywhere, coming up, going down. It was horrendous. I got a phone call from somebody else that said, Hayley, we're raising funds and we're trying to get money out to the people on the ground as fast as we possibly can. And doing it through traditional methods, through charities, etc., can be, well, I mean, we've learned our lesson from what happened with Black Friday, right? And there was other things that had happened where it's kind of cool, but like $250 is not going to help a family do anything. So there was a lady by the name of Dorothy who basically had an organization and said, hey, we're doing all these things. Can you use your influence and your skill to help us? I said, sure. So we built them a website in a day. And she told me that they weren't a charity, but they were an incorporated foundation. And so admittedly, I probably should have done next level due diligence in order to be able to kind of cover that off. Regardless of whether I did or didn't, this woman didn't do the wrong thing, and neither did the other party that was involved in it either. There was myself, another person called Dave, and Dorothy, who was the person that actually led the whole initiative. All I did was build a website and made it easy for people to donate. And get this, Trudy, we managed to raise almost $500,000 in 9 days.
Wow. Like just hearing that part of your story is like, that's such an incredible thing to do. Like when everybody is surrounded by devastation and shit is literally hitting the fan, that you've just come in being the good human being, wanting to teach your kids a skill, using your expertise in what your business does to literally help other human beings going through this devastation at the time. Like, yeah. That's just incredible on its own.
Thank you. Because that gets me emotional. So I'm just kind of like, thank you very much. Thank you for recognizing that. You would think that that would be a normal reaction, right, from people. Unfortunately, I got charged by the government for helping. The charge was assisting in the collection of funds, because Dorothy didn't have all of her, she wasn't a charity, right? She wasn't a registered charity. Now, right, wrong, indifferent, completely get it. And I believe that the legislation is there to protect people doing the wrong thing and people doing the wrong thing and taking advantage of situations. But that's absolutely not what happened at all. And the government knew that. That was acknowledged during the entire process. They had access to the bank accounts. There was a whole bunch of things that happened. Tell you something else that really frustrates me is that they had the ability to expedite the process and make the organisation a charity based on its ability and the traction that it had. $500,000 in 9 days.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what it highlights to me too, and, you know, probably going completely off topic, but it's there for me to say, is that it's interesting that inside of all this, one woman was doing the right thing, maybe didn't have all of her T's crossed and her I's dotted, whatever the case may be. But when somebody goes and single-handedly raises money like that, the government has egg on their face because they haven't been able to provide the same assistance in the same amount of time. Why is it that when we have catastrophes around Australia, that it's us true blue Aussies who are struggling with the cost of living as it is at the moment that can actually provide assistance where it's absolutely necessary comparative to the government who is actually supposed to do that for us?
Yeah, and I actually believe that was the energy of what had happened, and I think that that's exactly why they charged it, because they were embarrassed. Now, I haven't until now discussed this, in all honesty, until this moment publicly. I haven't spoken about it, not only because it makes that, even talking now, I'll get dizzy and it makes me feel sick, and I'm just like, oh, I'm back in that. You know what PTSD is? You get it. So right now I'm like, hearing goes, boom, everything, because it puts me back in that moment where just bombs were going off. And it's heartbreaking because in that moment, all I wanted to do was help. All that Dottie wanted to do was help. And actually all that Dave wanted to do was help. There were mistakes made. And instead of the government coming and saying, guys, wow, what an incredible job. How do we help you? No, they thought it was appropriate to come and charge the 3 people that had taken time out of their day to go and help the everyday Australian. Because, you know, when I went down to Lismore, that's what was happening. There were no, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face. I have the footage to prove it. We were interviewing people. I was just going, where's all the army? Where are the people that are meant to be here during disaster time? And I asked the guy, and I said, actually somebody in an army gear, said, what are you guys doing? They were collecting fridges. It's like, why are you collecting fridges? What's going on? They're like, oh, we've been instructed to collect fridges. And you've never seen such devastation in all your life. Piles of junk and festering pits, like water. We went to this woman's house and we gutted the house, helped to get control of everything. Why weren't if there were teams of us going in this house helping these people, where were our authorities? They were instructed not to help because of OH&S. That's what we got told.
Yeah, it's crazy the world we live in. Like when I look at it, I can only imagine the devastation of Lismore at the time, given that a few years prior, I actually flew to Townsville to help after the Townsville floods after a cyclone up there because my dad had a business up there. And so I saw firsthand the aftermath of that. And that was after some of the cleaning had begun to happen. So I can only imagine what it was like during the actual catastrophic floods where people have lost everything.
Yeah, it was so bad. So we got charged, and on the 3rd of August, actually it was the 2nd of August, I had to go in and deal with that court case, which was 2023. Gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago. 2023 August. And then on the 30th of March, I actually went and pled guilty, if you can believe it. I shouldn't have. I just was so like I just didn't know. Like I had to plead guilty because I built a website. I didn't not build a website. I did help. I assisted in this whole helping of people. Blew my mind. So I had to go to the court. I represented myself on purpose. I was absolutely not going to be spending money on any sort of legal team because I didn't feel, I felt the best way to represent myself was the way that I went in, which was giving my all. I needed to show up, not hide behind anything, and take full responsibility if there was any responsibility to be taken. I do take responsibility for not doing the due diligence to a point, but also I just felt so let down by the government that they could have exercised discretion and expedited and actually given them a 24-hour permission to actually raise these funds. I don't know why that wasn't done. There was no misappropriation. There were no charges of misappropriation of funds, nothing. That's not what anybody, not myself, Dot, or Dave, none of us were charged with any of those things at all. It was purely just because we didn't have the license to raise funds to help people, if you can believe it.
Oh, it's crazy. I believe it.
I get it for an everyday charity when we're not in the middle of the worst disaster Australia has seen in recent history as far as floods go. I totally get it, and I respect the legislation for that to deter people from doing the wrong thing. That is absolutely not what happened. So on the 2nd of August, I went, and if your audience wants to see it, potentially what I might do is give you the 19-minute video of the court transcripts so you can hear what the wonderful judge, and she was wonderful, she was so lovely. She was dumbfounded. She was even like, what are you even doing here? The prosecution were arguing on my point, on my behalf. Before we went into the court, the police prosecutor, gorgeous lady, said, I just want to say personally, I don't know what we are doing here. You should, first of all, you should not be here. And this is an absolute outrage. And all of us have discussed all of the ways how we can just not be in this situation. But it came from above, which is interesting, where they absolutely wanted to push forward and keep going with the court case. Now, for them to say that before I walked into the court, I was already broken. I broke down and I started sobbing. So basically, the magistrate, paraphrasing, summarizing, she commended me for the work. She said it's an absolutely incredible effort and I should be very proud of what I did. I've been responsible for raising hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in charity work over my 25-year career, right? And get this, ask me how much money I put in and invoice anyone when I do that.
I'm going to guess zero.
Yeah. Not only zero, I put my own money in. So I'm not the agency where it's like, oh, well, normally it would cost for an awareness campaign like this, it would normally cost anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000. But because it's charity, I'm just going to put an invoice in for 20. I would never do that. I've never done that. And to this day, I've never taken a dollar. And that will always be the case if I ever get involved in philanthropic endeavors. I'm very, very cautious now, you can imagine. You can imagine. And then in the lead up in February, after that had all happened, and I started to feel very unwell and I didn't really know what was happening to me. I was boaty, tinnitus in my ears, my anxiety, like constantly shaking and things like that happening. But I was like, God, maybe it's just end of the year, just gone through a court case, remembering I've been through all sorts of different court cases in my time. So I was like, built tough, surely I'll be okay, I'll be okay. And then my girlfriend calls me and says that she had some pain. I basically forced her to go to the doctors because she's the she'll be right girl. She called me and she was told me that she was diagnosed with stage 4 rare adrenal cancer. There's only 16 people in Australia that has it, and that she was likely not to make it through the night. And now that was one of the worst phone calls I have ever had in my entire life. I don't know if you have, and I'm assuming that you probably do, and I think that most people have that person in their life, that is just their person. Like, I've got my husband, I've got my children, I've got my parents, and I've got my immediate family that I love and cherish. But then there's Natalie, who is just it's making me emotional, one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met in my life. And I am so blessed and fortunate to have her in my life, because the moment I met Natalie 8 years ago, I became a better person. She's literally my compass. She's the person that I can be absolutely exactly who I am. She accepts me as I am. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird, because if I was that way inclined, truly, I'd 100% divorce my husband and go and marry Natalie. She's incredible. She's incredible. So it felt like the rug had been ripped from underneath me. So I think that was really the straw that broke the camel's back.
Look, just listening to that, like what you went through with the court battle, because doing something you felt was right, and it was right ultimately, but then to have your whole credibility and who you are as a person questioned, that takes a toll on itself. And I know that from what I've experienced. But then to be given such another devastating blow that you're already starting to feel the effects of post-traumatic stress and ignore it because you're like probably that tough nut who's just, this is life, continue on, this is what's happening, I've just got to get through it. only to then be like hit with this bombshell of no, enough is enough. How much more can I take? So
Yeah.
what happened after that with that kind of devastating news? It's a double whammy.
Well, to be honest, I don't really remember much beyond March 30. There's a couple of things that happened. March 30, I collapsed in a supermarket. I was gardening and I got stung by a wasp. Now, I've been stung by wasps and bees before, and it stung me right on the head. And I took a photo and I was like, I messaged Natalie. I said, Nat, I know you've got cancer and everything, but I've been stung by a wasp. And I said to my husband, let's go to the shop. We need to go and get some things. I was with my son. I'm not sure if my daughter was with me, but I remember my son was the one that actually picked me up off the floor. Oh, I felt like the whole room just went, and everything, like my hearing went. I just lost control, and then I started to shake. I was shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't stop shaking, and so I went home. And my husband brought the car around, took me home, and I remember laying on the bed. And my husband brought over, because I love my crystal bowls and resonance, and kind of, I do everything I possibly can to always calm my nervous system. Because I do have a lot of high stress things going on, mother of three companies. I've got a lot of things going on, which I love and I've never shied away from. So you're right, I do have that. I can get through it. I can do it, you know? And he came at me with the donging bowl, and I was laying down on the bed, not well, and just, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. That's what it felt like. And he's got the bowl, and he's donging the bowl. And I'll never forget it. And I looked at him and I said, what the fuck are you doing? And I apologize for swearing.
I don't.
And he's like, what? He's like, I thought that this would help. And then I remember getting off the bed and I went to the bathroom, and my son, who's 18 years old, he's 18. He doesn't follow me to the toilet, never has. But instinctively, he just followed me to the bathroom. And I've sat down on the toilet and everything let go. So my bowels, absolutely everything. And then I was just like starting to shake. So I looked at my son. I remember just looking up at him and I just said, call the ambulance. And he's just gone. And then that was it. I have very little recollection of what happened. I know that they jammed when the ambulance arrived. They jammed me with adrenaline because they made the assumption that I was having an anaphylactic reaction to a wasp. So for somebody that's gone through PTSD and their nervous system is through the roof, adrenaline's not a smart decision.
Not at all. Like, that just changes the whole dynamics of the situation.
It just put me into a spin. So after oh gosh, I am not ungrateful or blaming anybody at that point, because for them to be able to enter a situation and effectively assess what's going on and then make decisions based on what they're seeing. And first and foremost, if you're being suspected of having an anaphylactic reaction, it makes sense. I get it. All I've reported is got stung by a wasp. Two hours later, went to the supermarket and collapsed. It's for them to, like, I get why they did it, but they probably could have just watched, monitored, and managed my symptoms. But it is their protocol to administer adrenaline straight away if there's any suspicion of anaphylaxis, which I get because it can be very dangerous very quickly. Then it was just an absolute, from that point forward, it was from one doctor to the next, jamming me through. They put me on a range of corticosteroids to try and calm down my inflammation, because couldn't figure out what was going on with me. Like inflammation, they knew that I was inflamed. So what they were trying to do is because my face was flushing, everything was just out of control, out of whack. I'm also 46, so hormonally, I know that I would have, like, my periods were starting to become irregular. This is all happening in a couple of years beforehand. And I've always had this kind of like feeling of hotness, right? So over the period of years, but I'm 46. You know, I have history matters, genetics matter. None of those conversations happened. So long story short, it is a bloody long story. So many different types of medication. Unfortunately, it took my entire immune system offline, and I couldn't leave the house. I could not leave the house. I had crippling anxiety. I was rolling between depression and anxiety to a point where I was like, not that I actively didn't want to live. It was just, I couldn't see a way through at that point. And I basically, if I'm so grateful for my husband, because if it wasn't for him and my team, if it wasn't for Dom at my agency, who I literally threw the keys to the company, I was like, mate, you got to drive. I can't. You got to do it. And I've never seen, I am so fortunate for the people that were around me, Dom, Alex, Ellie, in my office, and my husband just rose to the challenge. So I had everybody taking care of the office while I was completely and utterly incapacitated. And my husband she was like my carer. And because I couldn't trust what was happening with the doctors, because they put me on steroids. Steroids was the worst thing. I was having psychotic episodes because they put me on dexamethasone. And then they took me off that and they put me on, beginning with P, another steroid. Can't remember. And I said to the doctor, I was like, you can't put me on these. Like, it's making me psychotic. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm like convulsing. And I just tried to take myself off it, but you can't because it's dangerous. So I very nearly caused myself some serious damage. I went back. I was hospitalized 5 times throughout this whole period where the ambulance would come and take me, all whilst trying to run a family and still kind of like, we've got obviously the mechanics garage and everything else. And my husband was bouncing between looking after me. I was still trying to make little micro decisions in between all of it. And yeah, I lost half my hair.
Wow. What
My hair fell out.
what an incredible ordeal that you have had to go through. And now I can relate to the depression, anxiety that literally causes you not to leave your house, like developing agoraphobia. That was me probably a little bit earlier than you because my journey started in 2022. But I totally get what you were going through in the sense that it's not about not wanting to take your life. It's about, you don't know the way through because you literally struggle to get out of bed, let alone function in any other way. It's like your body is on shutdown.
Yeah.
And given what you had been through with, the court case and then finding out about your best friend and then being stung by a wasp, like your literal nervous system, whole body was like, stop, I cannot do this anymore. But then to what you had to go through in order to overcome that, that's a journey in itself.
Been 12 months and I feel great now, by the way. I'm so much better. And how I do that, I got myself to a point of having to deeply self-advocate. Like literally, look, I literally just went and had another set of bloods done on Friday. It's got to the point really where I was having to tell my doctors what I wanted to have happen, not the other way around. Because it was, take these anti-anxiety pills, take these anti-depression pills. Oh, you've got anxiety. I'm like, I don't have anxiety. Anxiety is a result of something else that's going on with me. So I didn't want to take any drugs. I didn't want to take any supplements because that was it. People were like, everybody you speak to, you share your story. They're like, oh, you should take iodine. You should take omega-3. And you do, because this is very well-meaning people. And I get it. You may need omega-3 or you may need B6 or whatever it is. But each person's nutritional deficiency is unique to the person. There is no one cookie cutter, one size fits all to anything. And
100%.
Well, that's where the system lets us down a little bit. We go to a doctor and what we're expecting to get healthcare, we're actually not. We're being overprescribed medication because the doctors are not actually able to provide the time anymore. And they're having their hands tied because everything comes down to margins. We've got practice managers now. So it's kind of like gone are the days when the doctors there are some good ones. I'm obviously throwing a blanket over everything. My doctor's incredible. He's been my doctor for 20 years. And whilst initially he did throw medication at me, he's good enough of a doctor for me to say, Eddie, I need you to listen to me. And he's like, okay, Hayley, what do you need to do? And I'm like, this is what I need to have happen. I know my body, like I've had weird things, like I've had rare reactions to everything. I got intussusception at 36, which is where your large intestine consumes your small one. Very rare. but even rare, like more common in babies under the age of 6 months, but still very rare, even in those instances, right? So he's aware of my history and I'm very aware of my body. I just was in such a state where everybody was coming at me, you know, trying to give me, even naturopaths. So I said, stop. Everybody stop. And I said, right, I'm going to go and figure out a way where I can self-advocate and do my own blood test, because if you go to a doctor, you can only get a certain amount of blood tests. If you say to them, I want you to test all these things, they won't do it. So I found a company in Melbourne. It's called Ice Green, shameless plug. And you can actually go and pay. There's all these different tests, but I did a test that was the micronutrients test. And it's a full picture of, well, everything from your omega-3s to your A, your E, your D, and you get to see what you're actually deficient in. Now, the trick is once you've got these tests, you have to have a set of tests. And this is where most people fall over in the healthcare space, I believe, especially when they're self-advocating. They'll only go so far and stop testing. It's got to be a long-term thing. You've not got to do it once. Inside 12 months, I've had multiple tests. Like, I'm not even joking. In order to be able, and I'm not, I mean, that's a little bit crazy because in the beginning, I was obsessing over trying to figure out what was wrong with me so I could gain some stability and control. But the magic secret sauce is to test and only supplement for the things that you are deficient in. So you want to look for the extremes, not the bits where it's kind of like in between.
Yeah, look, I totally get it in the sense that we have also forgotten how to listen to our own bodies. We are so consumed, we are so disrupted, we are so distracted that we never take time out to look at ourselves. And if there was one thing that I got really clear on when I hiked the Bibbulmun track, is that when you are literally on your own with no audio distractions, no medications, and you're just at one with nature and yourself, you really start to listen to your body. You start to listen to, what is it saying? Are you really hungry? Are you really thirsty? You know, what is it that you actually need? What is it your body is craving? And it goes through phases. Like, I know at times, like, I can have a total sweet tooth, and then at other times I can have a total savory, like, give me salt. Like, your body's craving it. And I know for me, the last time I went to my homeopath, she's like, you're deficient in magnesium. So I've just like upped to the magnesium for the time being, because that's what my body is deficient in. And I'm, like you said, it's not trying 50 million things at once because everybody else says to do it. It's like, what do you need personally? And do it one at a time, because if you chuck a whole bunch of things, it's like when you've never exercised and you go to the gym and you go and work out on every single like piece of equipment, and then wonder why you're so sore the next day and that you practically can't move because you've thrown everything at it at once. But if you can just fix one area.
Everybody's always in a rush. This is the thing. We live in
They are. They want a quick fix. It's the world we live in.
So it's great, right? It's no wonder that doctors have been incentivized and monetized. It's a monetized business. And it's so sad because there are so many great doctors that don't necessarily play that game, but it makes sense. It makes sense. I'm a business owner. I mean, we have a branding and communications agency. We understand how to build communications and branding strategies to attract a demographic and to leverage that. Totally get it. As a professional, I'm like, yeah, it's a freaking great business model. But it doesn't, for people that are genuinely suffering with health, you have to self-advocate. And that means doing things like you just said, take yourself off and actually feel like, be with yourself and be with your body. How beautiful is it? That's the one thing I've actually spent doing. And it's the one thing that's made the biggest change is being at the gym, floating in a pool, getting in a sauna, getting in an ice bath, and actually just laying there, like just pouring into myself energetically, going to the classes or going to yoga or going and doing, and I don't care how woo-woo it sounds. I genuinely don't care. Sound healing and all that kind of stuff, it's not for everybody, but for me, from a central nervous standpoint, frequency is everything. It's all energetic, it's resonance. So I've been doing and exploring all sorts of different things. So for me, it has been taking the time out for myself to move my body and move it consciously. not from the purpose of I'm trying to get fit and I need my guns and my buns. I need to move my body because you don't move it, it breaks, basically. And also I need to get myself into a frequency where it's actually calming my central nervous system down as opposed to inflaming it. Found the ice bath incredible. Going from a hot room to an ice bath, and it's not a hero thing. Yeah, it's almost like a fire goes out in my body, and I'm in there, whether I'm in there for 5 minutes, and I can do 5 minutes, I filmed it. Or sometime yesterday I went in and I was in there for 30 seconds. I'm not trying to compete with anybody else. I'm competing with myself and doing what feels right for me.
100%. And you have to listen to your own body. I myself love a sauna and an ice bath. I have a kit in my own backyard so that I can do just that. Not at the moment, though. I can't get my ice bath in 40-degree temperatures down to an ice temperature. But it's amazing what it can do for the nervous system, because you start to focus on your body and your breathing and who you are. It takes away everything else. And that's what I said before, is like we're just so consumed and distracted that we've stopped actually listening. And I think if that's one great lesson that we can give to the listeners, like on both our parts, is listen to your own body.
Yeah, definitely.
And stop taking what everybody else says, whether it's on social media, whether it's your doctor, like whether it's the books you read, however you're sourcing your information, like stop taking it all as gospel and that everything is a one size fits all. It's an individual choice of what you have to go through and what you need for your own, like we're all individuals. None of us are created alike.
And I tell you something else, is it's okay to say no. I say not like in a rude way. You can say, thank you so much. And everybody is so well-meaning with their advice and their guidance. And, and of course we're overwhelmed with marketing messages of other people kind of saying, you see them online as you're scrolling, and no doubt I'm going to get 63,000 marketing messages now as a result of this conversation. But it's okay just to say, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll check that out. And then go and have a look. Does it feel right? If you feel expansion, it's probably a good thing. But if you feel contraction or resistance, it's probably not a great thing, and you might need to go and maybe explore it a bit more, or maybe explore a different path. It doesn't mean that what they're saying is completely incorrect, but it's just all those micro interactions, the little paths that you go down, all of it matters. And it's beautiful when people care enough to even share. I think that's lovely. You can still take the energy of thank you so much that you've cared enough to share that information, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and do it.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So inside of everything that has gone on for you, and you did say that you're on the transition of being okay moving forward, where do you sit now inside of like your health issues, inside of your business? Like how does that look for Hayley at the moment?
Well, I've come out kicking in 2025. So I spent my year of journey to me and respecting myself and actually reinstalling boundaries that I feel like had really been broken, trying to repair and it was my heart that got broken with what they did to me, with my reputation. I guard that with my life. I'm not a university graduate, not that I have any disrespect for those institutions at all, but like everything I have, I've worked my butt off for in life. And philanthropy has been a large part of that, coming from a pretty crazy background myself, been through lots of different things in my life. So when I had my character attacked, it's a personal attack, and I took it personally. So it broke my heart. And I don't necessarily think that I'm ever going to get over it, but every single day that goes by, I remind myself of why I was given that as a journey and how I can implement that, taking those little lessons and moving forward. Normally, I'm able to go, oh yeah, that happened and whatever, I can reconcile it. I still can't reconcile it, and I'm still going through that process. I'd be sitting here lying truly if I was like, oh yeah, I'm fully over it, because I'm absolutely not. Like, it still breaks my heart. I still play it over in my head. I still kick myself every single day for pleading guilty when I shouldn't have, and all of these different things.
I just want to draw listeners' attention to what you just said there, because I think it's so important, is that when you go through any critical trauma and then you experience post-traumatic stress and then you go through this healing journey of trying to rectify that, people think, and I know this is the same for me, that you're healed, you're done, you're back to normal, and that's the way it is. Like, you should be okay now. That was like years ago. That's not how it works. Trauma will stick with you forever. It's part of your past that you cannot just erase. What you do is you begin to diminish the severity of that trigger over time. It's like saying to somebody who's lost a loved one or somebody who's lost a child, get over it. Time erases the past. No, it doesn't. It just makes it easier to live with long term, but you never ever, like, I get triggered almost on the daily by shit that happened to me in my past. It doesn't mean that I'm over it. It just means that I have a choice in that moment to say, right, how am I feeling today? Can I cope with this trigger today? Sometimes it's a yes, and I'm like, cool, keep moving. Other times it's like, yeah, today's not a good day, and I just have to deal with that as a day, not as a life.
Yeah.
But for everyone out there who thinks that, yeah, you just miraculously get over a trauma, so not true.
No, and look, like, I want to say thank you to you for people like you, because honestly, throughout this whole, the minute that you start, you're like, okay, let's go back 12 to 18 months. It's a physical thing. And this is the first time I've been speaking about it. You creating a safe environment like this that enables me to revisit it in a safe way, and you're not judging me, and you're not asking me questions that are kind of forcing me necessarily to relive anything, but it's providing a safe environment for me to explore and kind of like, can I go this far, pull back, actually this is a bit too much, and they're micro things that are happening, not necessarily visually, and I don't know what the viewers can see, whether you can recognize it or not. There'll be moments throughout the whole conversation where I'm like, oh, okay, this feels a bit, I feel like I'm a bit lightheaded, so this is part of my journey. So your question to me is like, how's everything going? I'm going every day, on every moment of every minute. And those minutes and moments change multiple times throughout a day. So on a percentage, my days are like 80% amazing now and 20% shit. Whereas before it was 20% amazing and 80% shit. In fact, it was probably 98% shit. 2% of a glimmer of me hanging on to going, oh, surely I'm going to get through this. And at times I really didn't think I was going to. But incredible network, supportive people like yourself that are always there, like waiting to stick a hand out and say, hey, why don't you come and hang out over here? Or why don't you come and share something over here that doesn't make us feel, because it's the isolation, isn't it? We're already isolating ourselves. And the more isolated we become, and the more shame that's kind of like put on top of all of these experiences, because it's easy for us to beat ourselves up. You know, it's part of it. I think PTSD is holding that in. And before we jumped on this podcast, you spoke of losing your voice. That's absolutely what happened to me. 12 months. People were on social media saying, where have you gone? Where did you go? I had 1 million followers, Trudy, at one point. Where did you go? Well, I've been spending time on me. Pouring all that energy that I was giving out to everybody else, I've redirected to me. So I have to give myself credit because I'm one heck of a human. Because all of that energy that I was giving out to everybody else now redirected back to me. It's kind of been an eye-opener of what I'm actually truly capable of as a human being when I'm focusing on myself. And here's another shameless plug. Do you know Jason French?
No.
So there's a book over there on that shelf. It's called Helpless. And he writes about like emotional safety. And I think reading things like his book and connecting with people like him that truly get it, where we're brought up in a world where we're told greater good, you know, and that in order to be able to be a good person, you're always helping other people. But sometimes you actually need to help less to help yourself more.
I totally agree with that. And I want to draw like listeners' attention to two things that you said there. Firstly, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to prioritize yourself. It is not selfish. It is actually essential for who we are. Like, and I know as mothers, as business owners, Like, we get stuck by wanting to be there for everybody else and then forgetting to be there for ourselves. So self-care, self-priority is so important, especially in the current world that we live in, that you do need to focus all your attention on you first, because you give people the overflow from that cup, not the dregs of what's left. Which is how we be. And secondly, I do want to acknowledge that you notice the reason for the podcast's existence, because you are a prime example. We are all everyday warriors. We are there to literally just pick up and fight the next battle. We have an invisible shield, an invisible sword, and we're there to go into battle with whatever life throws at us. And it's how strong you be. And I think there was a saying from Nelson Mandela, it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up again and keep going. Yeah. And that's the resilience and the beauty of the human spirit, is that when you can just keep going.
Yeah. And actually relax. I've learned, so I feel like my parents, I've learned to relax into myself as well. You know, not kind of like all in my head. So what if I say the wrong thing? So what if my wrinkles are on my forehead? Or so what because my hair's all like this? And I've got all of these things and all these preconceived ideas about what everybody else thinks about me, on top of all this other stuff happening. I think that, again, all of this stuff that's happened for me, it's happened for me. At least you just said it in that sentence. It's happened for me. It's not happened to me. And when I actually admittedly had that happen to me, oh, this is happening to me. And it, like a peg being whacked into the ground, whack, whack, whack. I was like, right, now I'm down here. What am I going to do? And there's no one that can get me out of that hole other than me. No one.
Totally true.
Even though I have my staff and I've got my support and I've got my husband, and I'm so grateful, because I absolutely I wouldn't have been able to pull myself out if it wasn't for them, because I needed to have that as a reason. And they are my reason. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable in this story. And I feel privileged and honoured that you have shared for the first time in this space about the journey that you've been on, because I think the story will resonate with so many listeners who have been literally to hell and back, and that it gives them a reason to keep on moving forward. So thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And like, it's, life's good. Life's really, really good. It doesn't matter what's actually going on for anybody in their world. It's, it is what you make it.
Totally true. And I always finish off by asking all of my guests, what is the one thing you are most grateful for today?
Myself, me. That sounds crazy, really self-centered, but I am the most grateful that I am exactly who I am, because I have spent a lifetime beating myself up and saying that I'm not good enough and I'm not worthy, and living through imposter syndrome and all those types of different things. And I think that's probably where I was trying to get to before. But at the ripe old age of 46, and having gone through what I've gone through to this point, I'm most grateful that I am exactly who I am.
Thank you for tuning in to the Everyday Warriors podcast. If you have an idea for a future episode or a story you'd like to share yourself, then please message me, as I am always up for real, raw, and authentic conversations with other everyday warriors. If you love what you are hearing, please be sure to subscribe and hear all the latest episodes, and spread word to your family, friends, and colleagues so they can listen in too. If you are sharing on social media, please be sure to tag me at _Trudy _Marie_ so I can personally acknowledge you. I am always open to comment about how these episodes have resonated with you, the listener. It would also mean the world to me if you were to leave a 5-star review to ensure that the Everyday Warrior podcast is heard by more listeners around the world. And remember, lead with love as you live this one wild and precious life.